Coalition Director and Spokesperson for People, Not Politicians. Excuse me. This is the group that gathered and submitted 300,000 signatures to put the Missouri legislature's gerrymandered U.S. congressional district map on the November 2026 ballot. Jamie J. Johnson is a former Missouri state representative for House District 12 in Platte County, north of Kansas City. During her time in the Missouri legislature, she fought for policies that protected families and demanded accountability from those in power. She has always been a champion for transparent government. A product of public schools in New Orleans, Louisiana, and a mom of three, Jamie brings lived experience and first-hand legislative insight to her work. With a background in organizational development and human resources, she now helps lead People, Not Politicians as the coalition director, grounded in the belief that democracy only works when voters have clear information, honest leadership, and a direct voice in the decisions that shape their lives. Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And let me start by saying the bar has been set pretty high for me in terms of whether or not I can tell you guys when and who and how and where the lines will be. I am not that clairvoyant, but I will give you some background and some landscape of what we did, where we are, and where we're going, all the places we can go. I like the Dr. Seuss book, all the places we can go in the state of Missouri and in the country. So we'll just get right into it. Can you guys see my screen? Are you seeing, I think you're seeing the
It's kind
wrong
of your
screen.
initial screen. We're not seeing the actual PowerPoint presentation. There it is.
There it is.
Now
Okay,
we
can
are.
you see that? Okay,
Yep.
perfect. Okay, so how we began, right? So as we know, redistricting became a question last year when the president of the United States called a number of state legislatures and asked them to redistrict. We know the reasons, we know why. And what we did was we rallied a bunch of Missourians. It was actually the largest rally that the state capitol has ever seen. Several thousand people showed up to uh to or I guess several hundred people showed up. I think it was close to 1,000 people, but we had one of the largest rallies on September 10th to tell the Missouri legislature we did not want this to happen. We do not want to be redistricted. It is also mid-census cycle that is not in accordance with our Constitution. So we, the people, are demanding that you do not do this. And what did they do? The very the 2 days later, they did it anyway, as happens in the state of Missouri. We say we want this. They say, no, you don't. We know what's better for you, and we're going to go ahead and do what we want to do. So the Missouri legislature passed HB 1, and the exact same day we were prepared, the same day, People Not Politicians filed the referendum language, the referendum petition in order to overturn that act of the legislature. After that, life became a big old whirlwind. It was a lot going on. We had trainings all across the state. We had hundreds of people. We ended up with close to 2,000 volunteers that worked on this campaign and collected signatures all across the state. As a result of the referendum, we needed approximately 107,000 signatures across the state with specific goals in each of those congressional districts. And we were able to meet that because of people who just honestly, most of the people who showed up to help with this campaign saw it on the news, they saw it on TV, or they heard about it through their circles, and they showed up. We actually did a celebration in December after we got everything turned in, which we'll talk about here shortly. And a lot of people in the room, it was probably about 85% of the people in the room said that they just saw it. They showed up, they saw it and they showed up because they knew it was wrong and they wanted to do something about it. A lot of them are not connected to organizations, whether it's a Democratic club or a nonprofit or an advocacy group. About 85% of the people that worked on this campaign, of the 2,000 volunteers that worked on this campaign with us, were regular folks who said, I can do that, and showed up. They are not affiliated with any organization. Of course, we have since encouraged them to get connected somewhere with someone, because there's much more work to be done. Campaigns end, the work always continues. That being said, we had a number of opportunities that boosted our ability to collect signatures all across the state. The first one of those, Jackson County had a special election in September, very off time for an election, but it was able that allowed us the ability to put our volunteers directly in the front of the people who could sign the petition, which is registered voters in the state of Missouri. If you are a registered voter in the state of Missouri, you are eligible to sign a petition. If you are not, you are not. So there were people who actually registered to vote to sign this petition, so we appreciate them. But this Jackson County election day gave us the opportunity to put our volunteers right directly in the path of registered voters who are our target to sign the petition. So that yielded in, I think, about 10,000 signatures in one day, which was incredible. There was also the No Kings rally. I'm sure most of you have either seen or attended a No Kings rally since they started them. I think this year we will have a third coming up in March, possibly. But in October last year, the No Kings rally really set off. We did more than 10,000 that day. I don't remember the exact number, but we did an incredible number of signatures all across the state that day. And then the third one was the statewide election in November, again, putting our volunteers right in the path of folks who we need to sign the petition. We broke another record that day, and I want to say we got about 15 to 20,000 signatures in one day across the state. So all of those three special days, of course, we had volunteers going out every day. We had folks that went out to sporting events. We had folks that went out to their local clubs and clubs and committees and communities. And we also had people sitting in coffee shops all across the state. So that being said, we were able to turn in signatures on December 9th, 2 days before the deadline for us to turn them in. We wanted to get them in a little early just in case there was any shenanigans. We know how the state runs things. So we wanted to get them in a little early. And on turn-in day, December 9th, we turned in over 305,000 signatures. I think the final count was like 306,000, something like that. One of the reasons that we turned in so many signatures is because back in October, the Secretary of State declared that any signatures turned in before he approved the petition to form would be invalid. For our purposes, that was about the first 100,000 signatures we collected, because we got a incredible running start and our volunteers did phenomenally, and the first 100,000 signatures were now in question. So we said, bet, cool, we got you. We're gonna do more than we need to. So we re-engaged those volunteers and got everybody back on board to go above and beyond what we needed. And folks really showed up and really showed out. And we were able to turn in over 305,000 signatures, almost triple the number we needed to qualify in the first place. That being said, there were plenty of legal cases, lawsuits, there were about 9 total lawsuits in reference to or with a subject matter of this referendum or with this redistricting. I want to highlight 4 of those cases because we are either directly involved or they somehow will affect the future of the possibility of this referendum. So the legal landscape, we've got Luther v. Hoskins, which is actually going to be heard on March 10th in the Supreme Court. That attests that mid-census cycle redistricting is unconstitutional. So Luther, the plaintiff in the case, is asserting that the legislature violated the Constitution when they did redistricting outside of the constitutionally prescribed census completion. That case is, like I said, that case is being heard on March 10th. If you are following us on social media or you are signed up for our emails, you probably got an email saying to sign up for a rally that we are doing. We will be on the Supreme Court steps that are not the steps, but on the sidewalk in front of the building. I have to say that for legal purposes, will be on the sidewalk in front of the building, supporting the Supreme Court's efforts in upholding the Constitution. That is what we are planning to do. We are giving them public cover to do what they're supposed to do, and they can look out the window and say, that's what the people want, and that's what the Constitution says. So make it easy for them to do the right thing and let them know that they are publicly supported in that. There's also Maggard versus State. After we turned in the 105,000 plus signatures on turn-in day, several of our elected and unelected officials, as our Secretary of State is elected, our Attorney General was appointed, the unelected Attorney General and the Secretary of State decided to take to the public airwaves and say that HB 1 was already in effect, which is constitutionally false. The Constitution is very clear in saying that a matter referred to the people shall only take effect if once the people have the opportunity to vote on it. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what it says. Once the people have the opportunity to vote on it, the important part of that sentence that we know this case will be in our favor is and not otherwise. So it says, once the matter is referred to the people, it shall only take effect once the people have the opportunity to vote and not otherwise. So we are sure constitutionally not only gives us the rule, but it gives us a hard boundary on and not otherwise. So that one will likely end in our favor. But that one that's a case brought by the ACLU. We are not plaintiffs in that case. People, not politicians, are not plaintiffs in that case, but obviously we have a stake in it. The third is People Not Politicians versus Hoskins. We brought suit against the Secretary of State based on his statement that he would be invalidating any signatures before October 14th. That case is currently in Cole County Courthouse. Judge Limbaugh is hearing that case, and it is basically on hold until the Secretary of State issues a letter of or a statement of sufficiency or insufficiency. The Judge Limbaugh has decided not to render a judgment until he sees whether or not we have what we need to validate all the signatures that were gathered after October 14th are enough to validate the referendum and move forward. Obviously, we would love to have a judgment for precedent saying that no, you cannot just arbitrarily throw out the first 114 or 100,000 signatures that were gathered on or before October 14th. But we are not in control of that, and we would love to have the judgment for a precedent, but we'll see how it all shakes out. And the last case I want to highlight is People Not Politicians versus Hoskins. It's a separate case that is about the poorly written and misleading ballot language that the Secretary of State wrote. There is so much about this case that is just odd. So the Secretary of State wrote a terrible ballot summary for the referendum, took him to court, and they were betting on that recent Senate bill, I can't remember the name right here off the top of my head, that the Supreme Court struck down to be able to write multiple bad summaries before the court took over. Unfortunately for them, that Senate bill was struck down and did not go into effect. So they only got one shot at it. And at this point, the judge has taken over the crafting of the ballot summary. So the Secretary of State does not get another opportunity. And the funny thing about this case is that the Secretary of State, after that Senate bill was struck down by the Supreme Court, the Secretary of State was basically like, I admit I wrote a bad, misleading ballot summary. Please, court, give me mercy to to write another one. Please, even though that is not the law, because I was betting on that other Senate bill going into effect and me having three opportunities. The court said, no, no, thank you. We'll take care of it. So that one is currently moving in our favor. So the judge will write the ballot language. I'm sure we'll be satisfied. We have submitted our brief as to what we would like to see in the ballot language. The state had the opportunity to do the same. And so the judge will be writing the language in that case. So all that being said, what's next? What comes next? Now, here's the part where I do not tell you when or who you're going to vote for or what district you're going to end up in, because I don't know. But what's next is we expect the Secretary of State will issue a statement of sufficiency or insufficiency for the referendum. So we know that the pages of the petition have been sent to the local election authorities to verify signatures. We know that the local election authorities are in the process of working those signatures, because we have been in contact with them and sent sunshine requests and of that nature to make sure that folks are moving through those pages. Lots of the counties have completed theirs. Some of the counties are still working. Some of the counties, we had to go back to the Secretary of State and say, hey, they don't have access or they're not seeing what they need to see in the software. So, and the Secretary of State's office has been working with us to correct those mishaps. We do fully expect that the Secretary of State himself, in coordination with his office, will issue a statement of insufficiency. One of the cases that I did not highlight was a case that the state brought in federal court about our constitutional right to bring a referendum in the first place. So it's state versus Von Glahn, Richard Von Glahn is our campaign director. So state versus Von Glahn. And the judge in that case threw out the case and said, this is not a federal matter. This is a state matter. The Secretary of State could issue a statement of insufficiency based on the fact that he feels that the referendum is unconstitutional. And then then you all have the right to sue, to say, in state court that it's not, that we do have that constitutional right. And then we'll go from there. So that is why we expect him to issue a statement of insufficiency regardless of the actual valid signature count, because what this state loves to do is run out the clock. And so if we're in court, then they get to run out the clock. The problem with running out the clock on their end this time is that because we turned in the signatures, if they declare them insufficient, there may still not be enough time for them to get everything that they need, right? So the local election authorities have until July to verify the signatures before it moves into campaign mode, right? So if they issue a statement of insufficiency, they can move ahead with implementing the new House bills or the new maps from HB1. But But obviously, we expect a lawsuit and we'll probably file for an injunction to stop them from enacting those maps. So we'll see what happens with that. The other outcome is the outcome of Luther v. Hoskins on March 10th. As I said, they're hearing the hearing summary in Luther v. Hoskins. If the Supreme Court sides with the plaintiff in that case, it will have determined that mid-census cycle redistricting is unconstitutional, and there will be no need for a referendum at the end of the day because it will basically throw out the redistricting entirely, and then we'll all just, you know, move on to the next fight, basically. And the last thing is, let's say for some reason Luther v. Hoskins sides, the Supreme Court sides with the Secretary of State, Denny Hoskins, and we get a statement of sufficiency from the Secretary of State's office. And we just move forward into the campaign to educate folks on HB1 and encourage them to vote no. So I don't know what the amendment number will be yet for this referendum. We are expecting it to be on the November ballot if and when we move into campaign mode. But those are basically the possible outcomes. We get a statement of sufficiency, we move into campaign mode, we get a statement of insufficiency, we sue because we know we have the numbers and we know we have the constitutional right to bring a referendum on any act of the legislature. And the last thing is the outcome of Luther v. Hoskins. If that goes our way or in our favor, then we don't need a referendum at all because they will throw out the map or throw out the act of the legislature that created the maps in the first place. That is where we are. And so I am open. I'll stop sharing here and then I can take any questions that you all have.
Thank you
Let's
very
see.
much.
I wasn't
And
watching the chat, but I thought I saw some, maybe there was some.
well, I watched it and we do have a question there already.
Okay.
And I just wanted to thank you very much. I wasn't actually expecting you to solve everything for us this morning. But it's so good to hear from someone who really can give us the framework of the whole operation. So thank you so much for that. We
No
have one
problem.
loose end that Peter Schneeberger put into the
Yeah.
chat. He asks, why do you say probably file for an injunction, and
Yep.
why can you not file for an injunction at this point, or could you at
Right.
this point?
So the need for the injunction would be the injunction would be triggered by the Secretary of State's statement of insufficiency saying, and he has to cite that, like he can't say, we know we have the numbers in terms of the signatures. We have more than enough signatures. He can't say that the petition is insufficient because of the signatures. He would have to say it is insufficient because of it's unconstitutional. The referendum is unconstitutional on its face. We can't file the injunction until that happens.
Yeah.
So there's trigger points. Basically, we would file an injunction to stop HB1 from going into effect as a result of the lawsuit because he's declared the petition insufficient because of constitutionality. We don't know if that will actually happen. There is a possibility that they're just like, okay, we tried everything. Let's just, take it to the vote. That's a possibility. So right now we're working on just making sure that we are prepared for whatever happens. And one of the things that could happen is a statement of insufficiency. So we can't file the injunction until we have a reason.
Yes,
I hope that answers your question.
yeah, I think in general it answers the question.
Mhm.
And I suppose lawyers, it sounds like lawyers and strategists like yourself are thinking in terms of being ready for whatever
Yes,
happens and when it happens.
correct.
And And again, it is so heartening for me to have you with us today, someone who's not afraid of the intricacies and oddities of state government and the legal system. You've
Right.
been there a long time.
Mhm.
You're very good at explaining it to us. And so get your questions ready, folks. We have a big crowd here today. 22 people I count, maybe more. So this has attracted some attention from even our membership. And Herb has a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead, Herb.
Wonderful presentation. I thank you very
Mhm.
much. I appreciate the clarity of it. I'm not as well schooled as I am, and certainly not as well schooled as David in this, but I'm not aware of very many, if any, prior efforts to redistrict in Missouri off calendar. Have there been some?
Well, not that I know of, honestly. Not that I know of. The redistricting, this is very odd and very new in terms of the way they are doing it in the middle of the census cycle. I won't say there have not been. I'm just not aware of any. Now, we have used this referendum process before multiple times,
Right.
but in terms of the actual redistricting, off-cycle redistricting, that is new and at the request of Washington, D.C., is my understanding of that. And then I saw another question in the chat about if they issue a statement of sufficiency, will the old maps hold for the November election? Yes, that is correct. If they issue a statement of sufficiency, that means we have the numbers we need to force a referendum, because that's really what we're doing is we're forcing a referendum on forcing a public vote on whether or not we as Missourians want these maps. I don't want these maps. The old maps are actually not great for me, but
No.
I'll take those over these new ones. So that would solidify the fact that we have submitted enough signatures to halt HB1, and then it has to go to a vote of the people. So yes, the old maps would be in place for that vote.
Yes, this is how it gets so confusing because we say, well, we're against gerrymandering, and then somebody says off the candidate, well, we're already gerrymandered,
Yes,
we're just against this mid-census
right,
gerrymandering by order from the White House, blah blah blah, and
right.
the HB1 being put on the question of the HB1 being put on the referendum for November is one way to stop that this
Yes.
time, if we can get there.
For sure.
Okay.
I see a couple
Okay.
other hands. Kathy?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Jamie. That was a wonderful presentation. I really thank you for that. And what I want to, I'm just fascinated by the fact that you said 85% of the volunteers who gathered signatures for
Mhm.
for people not politicians petition were not affiliated with some organization such as a Democratic committee
Yeah.
a club or whatever. That's very interesting. It's also alarming for Democrats, I think, to hear that because we should have more of our people should have been involved. It sounds like.
Mhm.
I, how do you think? And you said they got it by word of mouth. You think it was news over local TV or articles in the newspaper? Or do you know how they found out about this petition?
I honestly don't know. I'll say this was an unscientific poll. This was me asking how many of you are affiliated with like you were brought to this campaign through another organization, such as Jobs with Justice or Abortion Action or Promo or whatever the different organizations might be that normally feed folks into a values aligned campaign. Um, but in that sense, it was me asking the question and people raising their hands, and that there were more people that raised their hands in this crowd, many more people who raised their hands in this particular crowd than did not. So that was unscientific. So I do not know how specifically each person came to it or didn't do like a formal survey to find out. That actually might be a good idea to do of our volunteer base. But I do know that we had a number of people in the room that night, Democratic club leaders, the Abortion Action was there, Missouri Worker Center was there, and I asked those people, requested of those people that they find a values aligned organization and get connected. But I know that I had in conversations that I had with individuals, they were talking about it with their friends. They were plugged into politics, just not active in volunteering. Life stuff, right? I was raising my kids, I was doing a thing, and then Donald Trump got elected, and then I felt like I had to do something, and then this came up, and so I signed up. A lot of them signed up to do the training through either a friend or, yes, word of mouth, basically. They saw it on the news or they saw it on TikTok because we did have a large number of young people too. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah,
Uh,
no problem.
when Herb said David knew more about state history, he wasn't talking about me. He was talking about David Lutold, who has the question now. Can you unmute yourself? There you go.
There. Uh, I think in response to Herb's question, we had a redistricting in 1965
Mm,
that was required by the federal courts.
Right.
mm,
And we had before that a situation in which the House had at least one representative from every county and additional representatives from some of the larger counties, but it was malapportioned. And the legislature redistricted itself, and that was rejected by the people. And then we had a vote on a then as I recall, we set up the redistricting commission, and the redistricting commission put in new districts. I was wondering, Maggard versus State,
mhm.
House Bill 1 is not to take effect until the people vote. When do you anticipate getting a ruling on that?
That one, arguments were heard in that one, I want to say at the beginning of this month. I'm pretty sure it was this month that they heard arguments. I honestly don't know when we'll hear from honestly on any of the lawsuits. I don't know when we will hear, but I'm sure they're anticipating a ruling. Hopefully Richard's theory is that so I'm out of town next week for training, national leadership training that I'm going to. Richard's theory is that we will hear back on all the lawsuits that are just pending and holding while I'm out of town. But I honestly don't know. The judges, have their own timelines of when they like to do things. So I'm not sure. But if I do get information on that, what I will say is if you are not signed up on our email, you might want to go to the website peoplenotpoliticiansmo.org and sign up on our email. If there is a breaking news lawsuit, decision dropped, we will send it out in an email.
Let me ask also, is Charles
Mhm.
Hatfield your attorney in all
Yes.
four cases?
Chuck Hatfield is our attorney in the ones that directly involve us. The Magnet versus State is not our case. It is the ACLU case, so he does not represent us there. But yes, for the ones that yes,
Thank
he
you.
is our lawyer.
I want to put in a plug for the person you mentioned
Thanks,
a couple
Dave.
times, Richard Van Glon. I
Yes.
worked with him, I don't know, 15 years ago, I guess, when Jobs with Justice was just beginning. And so I'm jealous of you of getting to work with Richard. He's just delightful and so happy that he's continued this excellent work.
Yes,
Kathy
I'm learning a
has
lot from him.
Kathy has a question, I think.
Yes, this is actually, I'm asking it on behalf of Debbie Finley, and you may
Mhm.
know her, Jamie.
I do
Uh,
know her.
yes, she said that she understood you were planning to do some deep canvassing, and I was
Mhm.
wondering if that was if if the referendum is going to be on the ballot or what that involved. And she wondered if that had been started yet.
We've got a couple different coalition partners. So our coalition is about, at least I email about 175 people that are a part of our coalition. Some of them are in the same organization, but we've got over 100 organizations that are a part of our coalition. One of them is Show Me Mo. It is our move group. So the Missouri Organizing and Voter Engagement Collaborative. They are doing deep canvassing now. They're doing deep canvassing to folks that may not necessarily be, they're independently affiliated, or they are not affiliated at all. Maybe they're not, they're registered to vote, but they haven't voted in a long time. So we're doing some kind of what I will call re-engagement, recommitment, deep canvassing right now, just in making the case that what we are asking the state legislature for, the politicians of Missouri, the elected officials of Missouri, what we're asking them for, they are regularly giving us the exact opposite. Things that pass in this state then get overturned. So they're doing some deep canvassing now. In terms of this campaign, once we get past sufficiency, insufficiency, lawsuits, yada, yada, we will be doing some canvassing, knocking doors and talking to people about HB1 and why it is bad for the state of Missouri. So yes, that will begin. We are preparing all the necessary things we need for that, getting all our resources ready. Because once we get past the lawsuits and the Secretary of State's office, we will be ready to go on that. Yes, that will likely start I know I saw a question in there about whether or not we'll hear from the Secretary of State before July. Um, we may hear from him early because we know right now that the majority of the local election authorities are done. And on paper, right now, according to what they have validated, we have sufficient numbers. We may be, 100 or so off in a district, but based on what they have, based on what we had, because trust and believe we counted and looked these things up before we turned them in. So we know what we had when we gave them to him, or gave them to that office. So based on the numbers we have, based on the numbers that they have, we believe that the Secretary of State already has the information about enough to issue a statement of sufficiency. That being said, whether or not he will do that before July is questionable. Of course, if he is trying to run out the clock, the strategy may be to wait until July to issue whatever, and then we'll be ready to file an injunction.
I like this idea that the strategy is to run out the clock, but it could be running out the clock for himself. So they have
Correct.
to, yeah.
Right. It
It's
could it could backfire on him in major
right.
ways, which it has already in terms of the
Yes.
ballot language case.
Yeah.
So, it's a risk that he is taking that may or may not pay off.
Uh,
Herb, you have your hand up.
Please feel free to pass on this question if you'd rather stay local, but quite clearly you're dealing with a national campaign to
Mhm,
redistrict for national effect, and the
mhm,
problems are erupting across the nation.
mhm.
Sounds to me as if you've got a lot of experience and accomplishments to share with others. Are you in communication with others elsewhere, or can you comment on how things are looking beyond the boundaries here in the efforts to create salamanders, which is the analogy in literature of gerrymandered,
Mhm.
and make all sorts of states?
Yeah. We are focused on Missouri. Obviously, we're keeping an eye on what's happening in Virginia and California and all the other states that are fighting redistricting, or attempting to redistrict to compensate for So we're keeping an eye on those. I do not know that I may not have enough security clearance to answer that question actually. I do not believe that we are in communication with other states other than just watching what's going on. And but so we're completely focused on Missouri. No problem. Did I see
Very,
another hand or I
very
make a
interesting
question?
answer.
Yes.
Um, I of course we're all thinking in those terms, and Herb
Mhm.
quite right to raise that idea.
For
And
sure.
David Luto's comments about other states having gone through court-ordered redistricting
Mhm.
in times past because the original the original districting was found to be unlawful in some
Yeah.
way. That is not what happened this time. It was ordered by the President of the United States, who simply wanted to grab a little seat here and there if they thought they could, and so everybody's scrambling and
Mhm.
making it so complicated for any of us to know what the hell's going on. Uh, Another
Sure.
way of asking, David Radel puts in the Rathel puts into the chat. How does this? Are you aware, or do you care? I guess, and the things you have to do of
Mhm.
how this problem is affecting people filing for Congress. I'm assuming
Yeah.
that it only affects people filing for Federal House of Representatives.
Yes.
Normally, redistricting would be redistricting for everybody, but this is
Mhm.
just the one
Yep. This is
office.
just congressional. This is just
Yeah.
congressional.
How
Yeah,
does it affect
so
them?
it would affect them at this point, they are filing in the original maps district.
Okay.
If for some reason that change, it would affect them, obviously. Uh, However, this is not actually the first time maps are in question. So in 2020, when they did the census in 2020, the maps in 2022 were in question for a while, not
Hmm.
because of a referendum or not because of a unconstitutional redistricting that was constitutionally done, but it just took a long time for them to settle on a actual map lines. Um, that being said, I don't remember exactly when, but I know it was significantly late in the year. I believe it was summer before we actually had district lines in 2022. Dave might know better than me, but I believe it was summer. But it would end up being a situation like that where you file and then you likely have time to adjust if for some reason the maps change. We don't anticipate that the maps will change. We trust in the people of the state of Missouri and the number of people that we've heard from that said that this is not what we want for the state of Missouri. So we are confident that congressional filing will go as planned with the maps that are in place today, the existing maps, and that will be successful in November to overcome this challenge.
And
Dave, you
Dave
have
would
your hand
like,
up. Did you want to?
yeah, he would like to follow up, I
Yep.
Yeah,
think.
yeah, I guess I'm confused. I thought Hoskins said clearly that when people file for Congress starting February 24th,
Mhm.
they're going to be using the maps that were designed by HB1.
They are not going to be doing that. That would
That,
be
that
unconstitutional.
okay, okay, I'll have to find that because I mean Rick Bratton has filed to run on the 5th
Yes.
result of how the new lines have been drawn. So,
Right.
but what Hoskins wasn't saying he was going to use the HB1 maps when people showed up on February 24th, and I've been telling people that falsely all this time.
So I'll say currently the shape files for the maps are not even in their system yet. The maps that they are currently working off are the existing congressional maps, partly because we are in the middle of a cycle for the April elections, right? So the local election authorities can't institute new shape files or new maps while they are in a election cycle. So
Okay,
if those new maps were to be put into place, which would be unconstitutional, that would be after April. So if we get a judgment that says one way or the others, then we'll know for sure. But right now, constitutionally, we are working on the maps that were created in 2020 after the 2020 census.
So that's a good answer to our dilemma that one of the times to expect some information is right after the April Constitution,
At
or
the
April election,
right?
because then there's a possibility of putting out new maps.
And I'll
Okay.
say also, let me to add to that. I know what Hoskins said in terms of HB1 being in effect, but just last week in our court hearing, our People Not Politicians Against the State, the state admitted and confirmed that HB1 is not in effect currently.
Okay, then I missed
am
that one.
Well, Dave, you can be forgiven.
But okay, but there's legitimate.
I mean, whose lies are you gonna believe?
But Dave, it is conceivable because they keep going back and forth, saying
Yes.
one thing and then saying
Yeah.
something else and then agreeing with us and then not agreeing with us. It is conceivable that you just missed one memo and then it changed 3 times.
Absolutely.
This is my concern.
Mhm.
When the federal, since it's a congressional race, I can see this getting into federal court somehow.
Mhm.
And when the Supremes last dealt with this out of Texas,
Yes.
the cases read kind of like, well, maybe these aren't the fairest lines to draw, but it's too close to the election for us to
Gotta
do
do
Right.
it.
And that's what the
And
state
I
is
can see
betting
that
on.
happening in Missouri.
Yep.
So maybe
We
that's
can
why
see that
I'm
happening as
overreacting.
well. Yeah, that is actually a viable possibility.
Yes, but it's going to be met with some at least judicial attempts for injunction or something else. It
Yeah.
won't go
It
silently.
won't go quietly into the
It
night.
won't
No.
go quietly.
Jenny.
Okay, Jenny has
thank
been.
you.
I'm hoping that Jenny has a question that will take us out of this conundrum that we're in right now, because it's a conundrum not of our making, but we're in it. Jenny.
Well, I had a meeting on filing day. For those that don't know who I am, I'm Jenny Hickerson. I'm Bethany Mann's chief of staff. Bethany Mann's running for.
Now we do have a candidate represented here. Okay.
Yes. And so yeah, when Bethany registered, when she filed for election,
Mhm.
I actually had a meeting with Secretary Hoskins
Mhm.
and had a meeting with his deputy general counsel, Jacqueline Bryant.
Mhm.
And so I don't know if you can read that, if you want to take a photo of that card.
Mhm. Yeah, we've talked to her.
Yes.
Yeah.
I asked him if officially what is the district. He said officially this from the Secretary of State's office, it is the new. That's what his statement is. I asked him if he would give me a certified letter, telling
Mhm.
me this, because if they did the old bait and switch, or if something, because I have like a 5 county swing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
so
for sure. You got to be
with
able to
that,
plan
that's
a
time,
campaign.
effort, resources, volunteers. There's a lot of
Mhm.
things
Yeah.
that make that fact. But he refused to give me a certified letter. He said, I will not do that. And so he then referred me to Jacqueline Bryant after he and I got in a pretty good debate, and he was losing. And so
He's used to that.
yeah, he is. He doesn't like strong women. And so he put on his red blazer and left the room. And and so anyway, I spoke to Jacqueline Bryant, and Jacqueline said that yes, she concurred that yes, that is, and I got her recorded statement on behalf of the Secretary of State's office that it is the new
The
area,
new
because
maps.
if they do a
Mhm.
bait and switch, then um, then she at least we have something to make a grievance for.
Yeah.
Also, I got a Associated Press reporter to stand with me when that occurred.
Yeah.
So
That's good to know.
yes,
So it's interesting to me that I don't know when that occurred. Was that
that on
before?
filing day, opening
Okay.
filing day,
So like
around
in
11
the
a.m.
within the last week, it's interesting to me that he's still holding to that statement when they have admitted in court.
And he was very adamant. He was
Hmm.
very adamant to the
Hmm.
point he was condescending.
Yeah. Well, that's I think that's his normal position.
Yes,
But I will say it's very interesting to me that he's still holding to that when in public court records they are saying something very different.
right, right.
So, so
And
Dave,
so
I
that
don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
so
I
Yeah.
feel less an idiot if that matters.
but
Well, no,
but
no,
I'm with
definitely not.
Bethany. We're gonna beat Bob Onder in whatever district they give us, because right
Wonderful.
is right, and justice is justice. And just as my mama used to say, lies come to the surface.
They do. Everything comes to light.
Yes.
So, yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know if we have, oh, we do have some more hands popping up. I guess maybe we can take a couple more. This has been so great and gone so quickly. Herb. Oh,
Well, I was going to just withdraw in favor of Kathy, who has her hand up. Kathy
okay.
has her hand up.
All right. Kathy.
Yes, I was just going to ask Jamie if your group is doing anything to support the Respect Missouri voters' efforts to get their enough signatures for their petition, which is, of course,
Yeah.
a very important thing to happen in Missouri.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we can't because of campaign and campaign
Uh,
finance laws. We can't assist them with their campaign. We would have to build in order to do like a shared um campaign effort, we would have to build a whole nother campaign structure outside of our individual campaigns and then run it that way. So we have not done that. We do have a number of volunteers that are volunteering for both, and we encourage people to go and assist. Like once we were done and turned everything in, we encourage people to go and assist with Respect Mo Voters. And I know there's an education petition, and then there's one about LGBTQIA plus rights. So there's many that are going on right now. We did encourage our folks to go and if they weren't already volunteering, volunteer for those other ones. But as a formal process, we cannot work across campaigns.
ah, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, no problem.
Was there a final idea, Herb, that you wanted?
I was just going to mention um, it's a bit of a fact for you might be interested in looking into.
Mhm.
Somebody that Sue and I got to know in Houston. We moved there in 1968. Got to Congress after a protracted battle over gerrymandering following the 1970 election, and somebody that I wish you could have known. She was
Yes.
wonderful, Barbara Jordan.
I love Barbara Jordan. I
And
actually
thank you
did
for,
met
and I
her.
want to thank you for
Yeah.
following in this good tradition.
Yeah.
Oh,
Barbara Jordan and I are actually sorority sisters.
okay.
So I never got the opportunity to meet her in
Well,
person, but
she
I
died a long
know
time ago, as you know.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, but I know a lot about her.
She was special in many ways.
Yes.
You are too young, Jamie, to have heard her so many times as we have. Two urgent things going. Can you make it quick, Alice? And then we can have Xavier
Yes,
give the
we'll
last
make
one.
it quick. So, are you allowed to do education? Because I know the African community, other communities are saying they like the SAFE Act. Not a good idea.
Oh
They don't
no. Yeah.
realize that can you do education on things like that? Inform
We
them?
so our committee, our campaign committee, just like any other, has a very narrow scope of what we can do. In terms of the SAFE Act, that doesn't really have anything to do with what we're doing. Now, obviously, myself, as an individual person, not connected to people, politicians, do a lot of other things around voter education and that type of thing. But we can't do that as like a intentional task.
Can you send out an email saying what the SAFE Act is and how you would have to have those two forms of ID, just education?
Oh, in terms of like just voter education, in terms of like when they go to the polls
Right.
or when they register
Because
to vote.
people do
Yeah,
not realize that
how
it's
it
so
will affect them.
restrictive in terms
Yeah,
of the IDs, and it's really
yeah.
important to let them know.
There is a lot of crossover between what we are doing and how that SAFE Act will affect them. Yes, we can do that.
Okay,
Great.
our
Please do it.
final question comes from our journalist, Xavier, or is it Javier?
It's Xavier, but a
Xavier,
lot of people
okay.
call me Javier as well.
Well, depends on the particular tradition. Xavier's great.
Right, right. Well, I just wanted, it's kind of a more general question, but
Mhm.
what is People Not Politicians' general statement to Missourians about the effects that this HB1 bill would have on them?
Yeah. Well, we know that our maps are already gerrymandered. Let's start there, right? The existing maps are gerrymandered. What this would do is what we are saying to Missourians is that the maps that they propose would put people from very, very different communities in the same district, limiting their ability to get proper representation, whether they're rural, whether they're urban, it does not matter. Neither community will be represented properly. Those communities have very, very different needs. As well, we know that these new maps break up a voting block in Kansas City that deserves to be represented as a major contributor to the economics of this state. St. Louis and Kansas City both contribute majorly to the economics of the state. So breaking up a voting block in the Kansas City area um, on a political power grab whim is not the direction that our state should be going. We have this from me personally, not necessarily from not politicians, but Representative Cleaver has so much legislative experience and so much knowledge. It would be a huge, regardless of what you believe about him as a person or a politician, it would be a huge loss to the state of Missouri to lose him as a representative because of the knowledge, the relationships that he has in Washington, D.C. So we are back on the people, not politicians language. We are adamant about people getting fair representation, having fair maps, and we want people to see the benefit in that.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem.
And that was a great final question. I want to thank everybody, Herb, David, Kathy, helping all of us questions, Jenny especially for her representative of the here and now, but most of all, Jamie, for taking your valuable time at this busy time and confusing time to come meet with us. Take back to your colleagues, particular Richard, who I
Yes.
know, our wish to let them know that our forum is open to you when there's something you need to tell us or something you might need help with. We're actually helping in this already, of course,
Yes,
through
absolutely.
the Democratic Central Committee, but anything in the future, please let us know.
Yeah, Boone County has been an excellent source of support for our campaign. So I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you very much. I see in the questions